Today's chat is brought to you by the support of all our Twitch subscribers. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through the Twitch platform, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a subscriber of the FFC and gaining access to some exclusive features over in the Discord server, please be sure to visit our Twitch account and click on the subscribe button. If you're an Amazon Prime member, remember that you do have a free subscription to Twitch every month that can be used for this. And for those of you who are already subscribers, thank you again for your generosity. You may have heard the whispers of guardians gathering in the shadows, exploring the mysteries of this world and the worlds which surround us. We are all in search of truth. Sometimes we need to focus that search, focus that fire. And so we come together. Join us. Join the discussion. Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Welcome back for episode 162 of Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on March 22nd over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us. Thank you so much for coming and joining us once again. Our topic for tonight's episode is going to be a look at the Stolen Intelligence lore book. But first, let's run through a quick introduction of those on the show for tonight. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86. We also have with us our own master of social media, the one and only Green Eye Music Lover. Green, how are you doing?
I'm good, and you did that very well considering that you're running the Thorn Strike at this very moment.
I'm really good at dodging things right now.
Apparently. I mean, good lord, that strike is... Oh, okay, so you have not tried to do the Thorn Strike, the Zavathun song, on extreme difficulty. I still say that this is the most difficult encounter in all of Destiny at the moment.
Yeah,
period.
it's definitely got like, and it's like it's like the perfect confluence of modifiers and just setup, right?
Yeah,
I really am actually not. I'm not super upset about it. Like, this really reminds me a lot of the original quest.
It's a good quest. Like, I'm not mad about the quest at all. I think it was really well. I think it was well designed with not only with the modifiers and everything, and the amount of burn that you're going to encounter at the end, especially. Yeah,
don't scare me, please.
I mean, you're already at the end.
Oh yeah. Oh, you mean like the actual, like, okay.
Just
I thought you meant like the
Axion.
Yeah. Oh god, the Axion
bolts
are. Yeah. There's words.
Have an auto rifle ready. That's all I'm saying.
There's words that I want to say.
But no, I mean, as far as how my week has gone, it's been fairly productive. One of my major projects that I'm working on the side right now is more than halfway finished, and all I'm doing now is collecting clips so I can have a video to go with it. So
nice.
Upcoming secret project. Yes.
If you're listening live, we might have a sneak peek for
at the end of the show after we stop recording, because I do not want to send it out.
Green's a little shy.
Yes.
Well, rounding out our usual fire team, our good old buddy, the lore content cop himself, Beard Grizzly, who's become obsessed with last names and dust. Beard, how are you doing?
Not just last names and dust, let me tell you. Let me tell you something. Gather round, children, as I tell you a story. So I'll give a small hint on this one. First, actually, to answer your question, I'm doing better now. If you had asked me a week ago, almost precisely a week ago, I would have told you terrible, because I had the worst migraine I think I've had in probably over a year. Not to be graphic, but usually when I upchuck, I feel better. Didn't happen with this one. Ooh. Like, usually that's when all the tension is out, like most of the pain goes away and everything like that. Not this time. The pain held for a grand total of 5 days. And I know I probably should have sought medical attention for that point. But one, not that easy. Two, unfortunately, I I knew that it was a migraine and there wasn't much else they could do for me other than being like, hey, do you want the equivalent of like legalized meth or something to knock the pain out of you?
Oh God.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, yeah, it's
like that's about like that's really about where I would be at that point for handling said pain. Like it would be that bad.
Dang.
So again, it's been a rough week, which I've been really thankful because one, if there's anybody on this live or listening later on that would or has, I should say, helped out with the Drifter video that I put out last week. Thank you guys a lot for the welcome back as well as the reception for that. That video is now like I think my one of my top fives at this point.
Nice.
So thank you guys so much for that. There will be more like it, where I am planning to be one, just like throw out my my ideas of like more just here's my feelings and thoughts rather than just like here's a bunch of information, because I feel like we've got plenty of guys in the community that do like a lot of the here's the information. And I want to be able to connect back with you guys a little bit more, and I think that's one way I can. So again, thank you guys so much for doing that. For my little hint that I wanted to give, there is the last name of a certain person named Lavinia, which you can find the book Dust. I will have you look up that one because it will take you down a small rabbit hole to begin with. I will also say that a non-pig is actually the one that kind of is to blame for this.
Oh no.
He had pointed out to me something that didn't click with me last week. Probably because I was in a lot of pain at that time because I had done it on Sunday. But the invitations from the 9, the first one was entitled The Whirl. And I didn't catch what this week's was, but apparently it also follows into the same spectrum of what I'm now further researching. And there are several things that the last name of Lavinia, coupled with the writer that is involved with that last name, and then the subject of what the world and this other orientation mean, that will become very apparent very quickly. And I had a thought as I was at work, and I didn't want to work because I started to go down this rabbit hole, of course.
Oh no.
I will say that I have found something really interesting, and I can't wait to tell you guys about it once I get it all together. But if you guys are looking for any hints or ideas on like where I'm kind of going, that is all I'm going to give you for now. But I am really interested to see what you guys kind of bring up or what you can kind of like feel about this one once we get into it. But that being said, to answer your question, I'm doing much better this week. Still slight amount of pain because we had another like 30-degree drop from another storm that happened today. But much better than I was last week. That's for sure.
That's great. I'm just glad because I know weather. I mean, I was just talking actually with one of our neighbors about the weather because the weather here has been all over the place as well. That's kind of not unique for right now. For at least in the States, it's not because it's all over the place. But green.
I really don't want to go down this tangent too much, but if anybody feels like telling me that global warming doesn't exist, you're frickin' wrong. You don't understand the concept of it, and you need to go ahead and educate yourself because we need to do something very quickly. Thank you for the platform. I'll turn this back over to what we're actually talking about tonight.
Good Lord.
I was going to say green, actually. I'm trying not to throw shade at Green, so don't take this wrong. She remembered to ask a question this week.
Hey, I am not moving anymore.
Yeah, there was legit reasons why there weren't questions being asked. Right. But I know also, I'm pretty sure this was one that we had some pretty awesome answers to.
Yeah.
Or at least entertaining answers, that maybe might be a better word for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question this week I asked, because we're talking about stolen intelligences, which are basically and they're circled around the hidden. And I asked the community, if you were Ikora and in charge of the hidden, what would you be most interested in researching or spying on? And we had a huge gambit of things. Anything from where is Shiro?
I like what you did there.
Huh?
I like what you did there.
Gambit of things? Yeah. I got your back. I got you. Little Rabbit asked where the hell is Shiro for. One Fox is like he wants to know about the farm because of Tyra being lonely. Doom's like enemy tech. Bo wants to know about the curse. Asher Mir, the RP account, aka Real Asher Mir, asked about the lake. Figure it out yourself, jerk. B-Boy Steve.
Beard's like, but
I'm Asher. But I'm Asher. B-Boy Steve was asking about the collapse and spying on the 9. A bunch of different things. I think my favorite one is still got to be Z's. Z asked 2 questions. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? And what's the max possible flight speed and flight distance of a fully armored Cabal launched from a gravity accelerator at half the Earth's gravity with a 10-mile-per-hour headwind?
But is it a loyalist Cabal or is it a Red Legion Cabal?
I mean, how much does the Cabal weigh? Also, what is the average dimensions of a Cabal?
I don't know.
Understood. Blue. No, yellow!
But yeah, lots of great answers from the community on that one. Both highly amusing and like serious ones, but I like it. You guys are sneaky snakes. I like it.
Sneaky snake.
I know I'm a sneaky snake.
Rat.
Look you.
You're the rat. You're the one who went with Vanguard.
Hey, look, just because I have standards.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. What kind of standards are you talking about?
Blowing up a whole city block standards, but sure, we'll go with that.
Don't get me started again. Nobody
Hey,
wants
to be fair, she did evacuate it before she blew it up.
Anyway.
What's the saying in Britain? Jog on.
That's a different saying that I was thinking of. But anyway, we're going to go with that one.
Yeah, you know.
So we'll run through our standard intro notes, and then we'll get into it. In our last episode of Focus Fire Chat, we discussed the Letters from a Renegade lore book. If you enjoy the show, please be sure to rate and, if you can, leave us a written review on iTunes or comment on the episodes on Podbean or whichever podcasting app you use to enjoy podcasts. Reviews are extremely helpful as they not only let us know what we can do better, but help continue to expand the FFC family, which allows more and more perspectives to be heard. To those of you who have already taken the time to leave us a review, thank you. As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a gathering place where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within game lore, with a special focus on the Destiny universe. This chat begins every Tuesday morning and runs until the following Tuesday, with topics decided by the group via a poll that begins every Friday and ends on the Tuesday morning of the new chat. Every Friday, at around 10 p.m. Central, we get together to stream a high-level summary of the previous week's chat for those who were unable to participate. If you're a fan of lore in all its various forms, be sure to also check out thelorenetwork.com, where you can find a wide variety of some amazing content that covers a number of different titles and mediums. This will also be the new home for the Focus Fire Chat episode note archives and articles going forward. Our next chat is going to be a discussion on Ghost and their Guardians. As usual, the plan is to set aside next week's discussion for a summarization of the extra lore content for March, Devil May Cry. Before we jump into the information and thoughts that the community had about the stolen intelligence, however, let's have a quick chat about this week's Lost Lore. This week for the Lost Lore segment, I think the best one that would actually fit really is just kind of a recap on who the Hidden are. And I know Green and I were talking a little bit about this beforehand. It's a tough thing because mostly there's not a lot of information, surprise, surprise, about the hidden. And that kind of actually goes in line with what they are. What we understand about the hidden is that they are basically they're the intelligence and the counterintelligence network within not just the Guardian ranks, but also the city ranks. I don't have enough information to say technically how they're necessarily related to Owl Sector. They do work, it seems, in tandem with them. The hidden, however, are, from what we have seen, predominantly, if not all, Guardians. Though some of the reports in this particular lore book that we're going to talk about tonight actually kind of paints a picture that might not be 100% the case. The Owl Sector is 100% civilian. There are no Guardians, it seems, within the Owl Sector. There's a potential that the Owl Sector might outsource some of the scouting missions to Guardians, just simply because of the dangers of certain events, but the predominant figures that we know of within Owl Sector are all civilians. Similar, the predominant figures, I think 3 current. Well, now we have a few more names to add to the list. But up until the release of this book, we only really knew about 2 or 3 hidden names specifically, and they have been all Guardians. We do know that the hidden are pretty much managed by Ikora. She inherited this organization from Osiris, which, that caused a few interesting theories to crop up before we got the information about Osiris that we did with Curse of Osiris. But we do know that they are controlled mostly by the Warlock Mentor, or the Vanguard Mentor of the Warlocks, which goes in line with that Mentor being really responsible for tactical research of basically the darkness and other enemies of the city, which we'll get into a little bit with, especially, I believe it's Cocytus, which is a piece of counterintelligence, actually, that gets leaked. I'm trying to think the known hidden real quick that we do know about before the book. I'll add to that list. Like I said, there are some names that get added to the list in this book. The list that we know of before was, like I said, Osiris formerly. Ikora Ray is the kind of the ringmaster. I believe it's Chalco Yong, I believe his last name. Is one of the kind of the superior members or senior members, it seems. Eris Morn was a member of the Hidden. It's unknown as of if her status is still there. And that's really kind of it. Green, did you have any other stuff before I kind of start into, I guess, the stolen intelligence? Do we have...
I mean, the biggest thing about the Hidden is that they are agents out there, but they are charged with certain tasks, but at the same time, they're kind of free to move about a bit too, because we know Fenchurch in particular goes on crazy adventures according to...
I was going to say, this actually explains maybe why Fenchurch goes on some of those crazy adventures.
Right.
Real quick, I just remembered, I also wanted to call out the fact that the Hidden, while they report to the Warlock Vanguard, are not solely Warlocks. They range all classes of Guardians. Mm-hmm. So it is literally it's literally a Guardian-wide network. I know that they're early on in Destiny, especially Destiny 1, when we first learned about the Hidden, it was a pretty hot button debate whether or not this was like the Shadowsmiths or the Redjacks. While we still don't know who the Shadowsmiths are, the Redjacks have obviously been cleared up. But we kind of had these mysterious little organizations ascribed to each Vanguard mentor, and it was thought that the Hidden might just simply be Warlocks. We have obviously since then Chalco is a hunter, Eris is a hunter, Fenchurch is a Warlock. I'm trying to think, who else did I have on here? Trust, if that's and we'll get into this, but there's a few that might be Titans. it's not restricted to class. It's just really, it seems like if you're willing to do covert operations, then the hidden will probably have you help them in some way or form. We do know from, I believe it was House of Wolves expansion, that there is a somewhat mark of the hidden. We don't know exactly what that particular mark, and I don't mean like a Titan mark, I mean like an actual sigil. This was a comment, an idle dialogue comment given by, I believe it was Brother Vance, who mentioned, I know that symbol. We don't know.
How does Brother Vance see a symbol?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the creepiness of that statement.
Anyway.
I mean, how does Brother Vance use a digital pad that doesn't have Braille? Like,
right.
I mean, there's a lot of questions about Brother Vance that need some answers. But
the light works in mysterious ways.
Oh, God, just go away. I'm a warlock. No, you're not. Go back home. No, and I was going to say the debate is the symbol that Eris has. There's been some speculation that I've seen that is actually the symbol of the hidden. I don't know. I don't really necessarily. I don't know if I agree with it. I don't know if I disagree with it. But there does seem to be something that the hidden use to identify each other. And the other thing is we find, I obviously neither of these two schmucks chose the Vanguard for the Allegiance quest, but if you follow the quest steps on the Allegiance quest for the Vanguard, you actually find out like just how well or just how ingrained into even just city life the hidden are. There are minor agents within the civilization, or the civilians. There are minor agents within the civilians that are basically the equivalent of like gophers, which is a term for like message runners, basically. Now, I don't know if I feel comfortable saying that they are full-fledged members of the hidden, but they are, at least smaller cogs within the machine that is this particular intelligence network. Which actually kind of brings me to the stolen intelligence. So real quick, a real brief summary of, I really like this particular book. It clarifies a lot of what's kind of going on both in current events as well as kind of nodding to some of the loose threads that have been hanging around. And it also actually, it's an actual book in game. Like it is an actual stack of documents that we get from Anor in game. And it gets explained. I want to say it's Instability that explains it. Just blanked on whether or not that's actually the entry that explains it. But it basically, what it is Anor kind of hijacked Zavala's strike protocol and smuggled these documents into the strike protocols so that when you're running strikes, the way you get this book is you rank up the Vanguard. So basically what she did was she hacked into his strike protocols and embedded this information files into the packages that he gives to the Guardians, so that every Guardian who is running strikes has access to this information that before then it wasn't clear if it was necessarily censored, but it has been decrypted by her personal ID tag and sent out to everyone. So she basically had enough of some things being hidden, and which is ironic, and is showing them to everyone. She's kind of pulling back the curtain, if you will, on some of this stuff. And that's really where we kind of get introduced to it, and also if you're looking at these entries, you'll notice that's what the header of these particular things is, a block of text. The decryption key includes Anor's hidden ID tag, which is the AUN, I think it's 326. That is Anor. And so that's kind of just a really brief intro of, thank you, Dino, the Oxygen Scout Rifle, which is the best scout rifle ever. I love it. It reminds me so much of Hung Jury. Yeah, so the Oxygen Scout Rifle, I believe, is the card that is the one that kind of gives a nod to it actually gives a nod to the current status of the Vanguard as well, which I really like there as well. I think that's the one that shows Ikora and Zavala also kind of repairing their friendship, which was really...
That's good.
Yeah, it's really... I might have had a minor disagreement with Bife on how to read it, but I think that it's more about them kind of realigning their friendship and getting back to speaking terms, because we know that Ikora is really severe in the compartmentalization of things with people that she doesn't agree with, her ghost. And so Zavala actually kind of seems to be making a kind of he's offering an olive branch basically, and Ikora actually takes it. So their relationship seems to be on the mend, which, given the events of Forsaken, it was put through a ringer, not just because of the death of Cade, but also because of how Zavala responded and kind of the muzzling of Ikora, if you will, in that the disagreement on how to react to it. So they seem to be finally moving past it and kind of coming out. Not necessarily, maybe not. I don't know if I would say they're stronger for it, but their relationship is at least intact in some degree. But with that, I really I'll hand it. Green did an amazing job. She helped me out this week with the notes, and she kind of blew it out of the water. So I'm gonna actually turn this over to her for the first card in the Stolen Intelligence.
So we have Outliers, which is the very first card, and it's about the Fallen, and it's from Agent Ran 187, which blew...
I don't know who it is. It's like, that's the one... So Pins would like to submit the suggestion that it is Randall the Vandal.
Oh my god, that would be amazing.
I firmly and immediately was like, no.
Well, I mean, we have Mithrax in this card too. I mean, there's...
Okay, so
I know.
So in all seriousness, I love the joke there as well. But to clarify, actually, there is a difference in what we see as hidden call signs and VIP IDs. VIP IDs are going to be, it will usually say VIP hash 4-digit number. They're always a 4-digit number. The hidden call signals so far, as we have seen so far, are 3 letters -3 numbers. I haven't quite put my finger on the significance of the numbers, because I
Ikora's is pretty amazing.
You think?
I
might have you walk me through that one.
It's almost 007.
Almost. Oh, yeah. No, that's true. Yes. But I haven't quite put my finger on where the numbers come into play, but the first letter, the 3 letters do seem to be all the first 3 letters of their first name. So from this particular book, just real quick, the ones that I'm very certain of are Eri, ERI 223. That would be Eris Morn. IKO 006 is Ikora. CHA 319 is Chalco. FEN 092 is Fenchurch. AUN 326 is Anor. And then I'll kind of weigh in on the VIP numbers, because that kind of that's a longer list.
Yeah, the
and
VIP
I also
numbers are also a mess.
Yeah, there's one VIP number that I'm like, okay, I know exactly where the logic was for the ascribing of the number. The other ones, I don't know if there's a rhyme or reason to the other ones necessarily.
I mean, some of them may be when they became known to us, as far as like they're just going cataloging them chronologically.
Well,
but
and I mean,
it's also
I thought that too,
sure.
But I don't know. Like there's I don't know. I thought that too, but then there's some that are kind of
Weird
in the way
Mm-hmm.
like the one for Varix and the one for our Guardian would not follow that logic necessarily.
Well, our guardian though, like I don't know if
No,
they
like our Guardian, for example, is the VIP number 2014, which, I mean, my personal theory, I don't know if this is the actual case, but my personal theory is that might have something to do with, I don't know, the year that Destiny 1 was released, which was 2014. But then Varix is 1121. But I'm pretty sure we didn't have IDs on Varix until either close to, after, or right, like immediately before.
House of Wolves.
Well, but I mean, you could argue that the Hidden had records on these particular figures beforehand. But then, like, you know, that I guess my point is, if it's a simple chronological numerical system, then I just would expect some of these numbers to be a little bit more disparate, because like Oryx is 2015,
right?
And we're 2014. There was a lot of information that got released between the time that we showed up and the time that Oryx kind of got showed up. So, I mean, it's just, to me, I think there is a system in place. I haven't quite figured it out, and I could also be overthinking it. I do have a document similar to the list of light bearers that I can put in the show notes for this particular piece. I'm also working on trying to compile all the acronyms and trying to figure out, you know, an easy way to reference those. But yeah, so yeah, sorry. Green,
No,
please continue with the Outliers.
So Outliers is a report from a Hidden about the possible reunification and I would not necessarily say uprising, but reunification of House Dusk and the fallen culture and society in general. The very first thing, the first section of this, which is all these cards are broken down pretty much through numerical things as far as points that each of the agents are making. Point 1 in this card is that refugee attacks have dwindled essentially in number since the Red War due to a variety of reasons, mostly because of the depressed population of humanity as well as the fallen. So there's less attacks happening on the road. There's not a whole lot going on there. Not necessarily because the fallen are not attacking and they're becoming friendly with us, but more so in the fact that both populations have dwindled since the Red War. Another second part is the House Dusk is splintering and radicalizing, destructuralization of the fallen society, which I thought this is really super interesting to me in this card, is the fact that the culture of the fallen Archon Kel society, that kind of hub as far as what they believe in and how they believe, is kind of sort of falling away with a lot of the younger generation.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, and they're adapting more mythological structures like we have in humanity, more dark, not necessarily dark age stuff, but they're adapting our own culture within themselves. I don't know.
Well, it also is very similar to in ancient, pre-medieval times when armies would invade. There was a lot of times, if they were inhabiting an area for an extended period of time, the cultures that they were actually arguably fighting against, they would actually start assimilating them, because it was just it's just natural to kind of match your environment. And that's why
any sort of migratory group is going to assimilate into the environment in which they encompass or
right.
Encompassed
And then,
by.
but I mean, you also see that with like the military conquest of the Roman Empire. One of the arguments that the Romans were so good at assimilating the different cultures is that's actually one of the reasons. It's arguably one of the reasons that they were able to expand as vastly as they did, was because they, for a large part of it, they didn't really fight the cultures that they acquired. Like there was parts that they were like, no, you have to do this. Like you have to recognize us as, your sovereigns or whatever. But other than that, they're like, yeah, we have house gods. Your gods are, for religious connotation, your gods are your house gods. Okay, cool. Whatever. We have those. There was no argument. And in a lot of cases, you see, I use the Roman Empire because it was a very easy example, but you see a lot of actually adoption of their own, their enemy's culture almost, they kind of actually take it and make it their own. Like they do that really on a regular basis. And so I like how they've portrayed the Fallen as kind of, and doing a similar kind of thing, is that, they're fighting against us, but they have been fighting against us for so long that they actually are starting to lose a bit of themselves. And you also have, the death of what I've always referred to as the Fallen Triumvirate between the Kel, the Archon Prime, and Servitor Prime, or the God, I just blanked, the Archon and the Servitor. Well, you have the Scorn, which are, killing all the Servitors, and you have Aldurin, who kind of destroyed the last really old Kel. And so now, and I think the report calls it out, but it's like the only people surviving in the Fallen ranks are the younger generations. Like there are no Varix is really at this point probably arguably, I think maybe other than Mithrax, is probably arguably one of the predominant older figures. So there's not a lot of Fallen that actually remember the old ways. And that's why, I mean, even in Varix and Most Loyal, which big shout out to Potato for the amazing work that he did with the audio supplement there. But it's called out that that's one of the reasons that Varix prefers to work with certain Fallen, is because they, even though they're disrespectful to him, they still speak the old language. Like there's very like these weird like little nuanced reasons that Varix picks to work with people, and that's kind of another call out there, is that their culture is dying, and it's not dying because of necessarily a violent takeover. It's dying because of just time. They're losing, sadly, a war of attrition with themselves. But I think that I agree with you, Green. I think that this entry was really interesting because it also kind of bundles up a few different questions on, like what is going on with the Fallen, and kind of almost also points or paints a somewhat sketch, or I guess sketches a possible picture of what we can expect in the future for the Fallen, because with the call out to House of Light, actually, I really like that nod there, that Mithrax is. And it even, like, I like the tongue-in-cheek nature of the response that the people writing this report, they're like, well, supposedly this guy is helping us, but I'd believe it when I see it kind of attitude. I like that. It gives a more realistic flavor in my mind to it.
It does. And the thing that I enjoy about this is I don't remember ever hearing about Aramis. We know about Varix, we know about Mithrax to a bit, and granted, those two are listed as would-be antagonist, basically the good guys side of Fallen, like people who we could possibly
get along with,
good relationships with, versus the Separatists, which would be Fickrel and Aramis. I don't remember seeing anything about Aramis, really.
But also a big nod to what's going on with Fickrel, because that gets called out here. So it is canonical now that we have an equivalent of Taniks on, in Destiny 2. For those who didn't play Destiny 1, Taniks was the ever annoying plague of a Fallen who just refused to die. And he was actually called out in lore as, like, he was killed by multiple people and then just showed back up. And it was like, okay, they literally, like, Cade mentions that they don't know why he won't die. He just won't. So now we have kind of a nod that maybe Fickrel is kind of a similar situation.
Yeah. Also get a call out about Aldurin in this one, which is interesting because the call out about Aldurin in this book is essentially, it's during the Fickrel section. Given 4503, which is Aldurin, that's Fickrel's propensity for resurrection, the inherent risk of 4503 reclaiming the body of the murderer Aldurin Sov from his final resting place in the Dreaming City goes without saying. Depending on the timing of this book and possibly this person may not have all the information. from what it looks like, the city doesn't know that Aldrin has been resurrected. This is only one perspective, but
Right,
it
and
looks like the city doesn't know.
I think that's important too, though, is to keep that in mind that
Yes.
we, how do I say this? We as players, I referred to this as out of character information.
Yeah.
We have information that even our own character does not have.
They do. They saw it.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. Right. Sorry, we saw it, but sorry, yes,
characters in game.
That's how we found out about it. But
NPC characters.
Yeah,
yes.
which is weird because sometimes, most of the time when you're playing an RPG, it's actually the other way around. NPCs have information that you don't have. And so, but I think that's also an important thing to keep in mind when we look at how NPCs react to things, is that, again, reiterating what Green just said, this is one perspective. There are catalysts to why characters will react a certain way to certain events. We saw that with, I know Beard's going to groan at me, but we saw that with Zavala, with Warmind. There's a lot of different times that I'm not saying that I agree with the decision, but I can see the logic behind the decision, if that makes sense. And that's, again, that kind of goes back to, that's what I really enjoy about reading these type of entries, is because you can totally see it, and it makes it more real. It makes it more realistic. I think it helps me suspend my disbelief and really get into the effect, I think, just personally.
I agree. Is there anything else in this card that you were, besides Aramis, the ship stealer?
And I did a really quick search. Aramis is not mentioned. I mentioned
the other one that I didn't mention in my basic rundown summary is that crime syndicates.
Yes, Spider.
Yeah. Also, the report, Fallen SIV. I'm sorry. Every time I see SIV now in game, I cannot help.
It's
but
red.
Think of Siva. And there's also a mention of House Devils.
I was about to say, to be fair, there's a mention of House Devils, so we do have the splicers still technically running around.
Yes.
So. Yes, I do. I saw that as well, and I was like, oh, that's going to be fun if that comes back.
Yep. I mean, they've had hints of it in a variety of different places now, so we'll see. Do you want to roll into Instability?
Yes, because I really like this one, actually.
Yeah. Do you want to take this one as far as rundown?
So Instability is a report, real quick. It is actually a report given by Ikora. And I think Beard is going to really enjoy this one, because Ikora's response to situation is that she views their role as Vanguard as really unnecessary. She is talking about potentially having the Vanguard stand down. There's not even, it's also uncertain if this were to happen, if they would even replace the Vanguard. There's also a comical nod to the fact that such talk has cleared the tower of all hunters. Because they all are like, nope. they hear the Vanguard Dare might be coming back, and they are all just vanishing into the wilds, which is really, I find that just entertaining. Mm-hmm. And then let me see. Yeah, and basically what goes on is that Ikora says that she feels that they have failed to adequately respond to the questions about their integrity, competence, and unity since the loss of Cade, which is also a nod to what's going on in the Oxygen card that we mentioned previously. She also calls out the fact that the Vanguard was never meant to be a governing body of authoritarians, and given recent events within the Red War, namely the Speaker vanishing, dying, whatever is going on there, they have repeatedly kind of been put into that position. And because they're in a state of war, there hasn't really been time to address that fully. But really it wasn't the intent of the Vanguard to act in that capacity. And so it's just kind of like, it's basically someone being like, look, this really wasn't the intent of my job. I don't have this is not my area of competence. So yeah, there's that, and and then it's a big callback again to neither Ikora or Zavala had ever intended to become what she refers to as politicians. And then apparently the idea of the Vanguard stepping down is not isolated to Ikora. It is actually a conversation that she and Zavala have been having. So, and then it's a call out again to another hot topic of the community is the question of Cade's dare. What does that mean? Because I believe she says if they followed the chain back, they would have to put a hive god as the Vanguard, which obviously is not going to happen. So in anticipation of the possible caucus, which would be putting out a general Vanguard dare, the hunters have all vanished basically. Which hunters are very good at. Like they're like, nope. Most of the mini qualified have already fled the tower, which makes me think that would be Shiro, Marcus. I think maybe Chauko. I think if that's a hunter, I have a few names off the top of my head that I could think of that kind of maybe a nod to. Well, yeah, they've mysteriously gone missing. But yeah, that was pretty much, we get the confirmation, or not confirmation, but this again was a report written by Ikora. I don't know if I'm getting, I think I got everything.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Ikora, they talk about what the Vanguard was initially established as, like what the intent was of the Vanguard versus what the perception of the Vanguard at this point, and how the Vanguard are still continuing to function in the way that they had intended, but the perception of the community or those within the tower and within the civilian contingency view them in a different light at this point. It's political, and she doesn't want to be political. And yeah, you pretty much covered it all, I think. The fact that the hunters, like the notable hunters, are running away.
I love that. I love the little nod there. It's like, yeah, they know that what we're about to do, so they're all gone.
And then we get to the book or the card that's going to break Beard. Beard, are you ready?
I mean, I guess.
Cocytus.
That's the attitude, Beard.
Oh, you're not going to break this one. I already know what's going on here.
Okay.
Beard's like, oh, yeah, I've been forewarned about this guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
I read Dust, okay? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
So Cocytus is a interesting card in so much that it is from Agent True, TRU-135. It is an intercepted transmission is the subject name of it. And it has to do with the infamous gate on A113.
Which a lot of people are, you're going to have a pretty good choice of people to follow as far as researching that particular one. Because I think Matt has a video out, Bife has a video out.
Mm-hmm.
I think I even saw Wally mention that he might be putting a video. Like, I mean, there's
Oh, really?
a lot. Yeah, it's a pretty big one.
Very interesting for sure.
It is.
I mean, A113 has been around since D1 in the Dead Orbit, Ghost Fragment Dead Orbit.
Well, I mean, if we're going to be honest, AA113 has been around since Toy Story, so,
Well, as far as the inside joke, I guess, yes. Good Lord. Toy Story had the original gate, you guys. The 9 were
actually,
there.
now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even know if Toy Story was the original one, now that I'm thinking about it.
It was Pixar shorts, I thought.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
it was
say I know
Pixar.
there were a couple that...
But in Cocytus, there is... Cocytus is the name of the space station in which the gate and the designation A113 comes from. The Sophia, which was the ship that Dead Orbit... The ship of those in Dead Orbit who perished, I guess is the nicest way to put it. Kind of went insane. That's hard to tell with Dead Orbit people sometimes. But there are 3 gates. One of them is actually running and working. So the one that is running is gate number 3. And a lot of the stuff within this card are based on supposition and theories of this agent, or theories of the person studying the gates, not necessarily agent themselves, because the agent intercepted this transmission. So keep that in mind. It is a scientist of some sort or a likely warlock studying it. But within the gate, there is a lot of essentially radiation happening, and they start to notice that something is trying to come through. Initially, it is singular atomic particles, so hydrogen, the most basic, and then it starts to become more and more complex, where you get heavier and heavier molecules, and it eventually starts to chain into actual organic material. This takes place over about a 30-day period. It's a little over 29 days, or either a little over or a little under. I need to grab my notes on that real quick. Little under 29 days. But it goes all the way from sending hydrogen molecules through all the way to trying to send created life through. Granted, their last attempt of whoever this is on the other side only survived 90 seconds before dying because the physics and the geometry on the other side of the gate, the geometry that they understand is not the same as the geometry in our side. So they don't understand entropy and deterioration and metabolism and reproduction, because those are concepts they don't have to deal with on their side. So they can't accommodate for them on our side. And therefore, the organisms continually die as they come through. It's really creepy. It's kind of a cool card because you get to see a lot of sciencey stuff in it. Pseudosciency, I guess. But it's...
Science fantasy.
Yes. Thank you, Beard. Science fantasy. It is interesting, though, because it is I love how it's essentially evolution sped up. Like, whoa. Like, if you imagined what evolution on this planet would be like, and how many millions and thousands, millions and millions of years it takes for us to go from just being atoms to being walking, talking organisms, and the fact that the entity on the other side of this gate, or the persona on the other side of this gate, is able to manipulate and learn the rules of our realm, for at least the basic rules, within a matter of days, is fascinating and really, really cool writing. Other thing about this card is that Crota used to hold on to these gates. Essentially, he had dominion over them for a long time. And the radiation that is coming from the gate number 3, which is where all the sludge, the tar, I'm calling it the tubular organism coming through. There are similar readings coming from the Hellmouth, even though there's not actual things coming out of it. Similar readings, but not the exact same thing that is actually coming out of Gate 3. But last thing about it is that anything that we send through to the other side apparently is annihilated upon arrival. So there's no ability for us to gain any information from the other side. But apparently the other side is getting enough information from our side to be able to modify. This is the debate that Blue and I had. Was it 2 days ago? Yesterday?
Yeah, I don't remember. They all blend together. I think it was 2 days ago.
So we were discussing, I brought up the idea of how could a being on the other side, if the organic material is perishing on our side and not able to send back information to the other side, how is the person on the other side learning it? It's essentially going through a door and immediately getting cut off from the other side of the door. But this being or this group is not getting cut off. They're able to adapt. So I brought that question up with Blue. And
hang on, I pull up the conversation because I've had variations of this conversation actually with a couple different. So give me 1 second. Let me pull my mic over here so I don't sound like I'm looking away, because I'm not looking on a different monitor. I remember this one also having a bit of tie-in with, I know we talked about entropy too, which will actually be kind of involved. So yeah, okay. So like you were saying, like how does that consciousness on the other side get the information? And my response was, I kind of, when I was reading this particular card, I view it very similar to the way Stargate presents the concept of a gate network within their universe. So basically what they would do is they would send drones through the Stargate, like SG-1, they did this all the time because that's what the TV show was all about, was it was basically Star Trek, but with Stargate. They were exploring worlds. And one of the things they would do is they would send a drone through. And one of the first things that drone would do is basically threat analysis and environmental analysis. Like, like, hey, is the air breathable and am I getting shot at? And like basically whatever information they got back, they would have like video feed or whatever. And these things were specifically designed to handle that specific situation. And with Stargate, they could lock, like there was nuanced ways they could interact with the gate network. They could lock it so that it was a one-way transport, so that anything coming back would be destroyed or whatever. There was ways that they got around, especially later in the series, they got around certain challenges. And I think that kind of led into and that's where I kind of was like, no one at any point in time has ever specified that these gates are two-way. Right. So for all we know, it's just a one-way trip. And there's ramifications, obviously, and implications if that's the case. There are obviously some issues there. But the other thing to remember is that these are, like the fact that they are able to go through the evolution in, I think it's at the end of the last time mentioned was like 650 hours, 690 hours. It's basically 29 days. 28 to 29 days. I think technically it's like 28.75 days. But that's a month. Okay. So you went from
hydrogen.
not even, to be fair, remember they didn't even have hydrogen. Their original thing was they sent like subatomic thing. They went from that to I can't say this with a straight face, a tubular organism. The internet has ruined. They went from that to that in 30 days. So if nothing else, that actually shows how advanced of an intelligence they're dealing with. Because that would take normal, evolution millions, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years to develop. Right. So there is that going back. And I think that was where we kind of got into the conversation, like atomic communication and quantum communication. I am not familiar, and I know I made Green laugh because I kind of tossed it out there, and then she responded with words, and I was like, I don't know what any of that means. I think you were talking about like dual molecules or something.
It was basically quantum entanglement or like molecule. Gosh dang it! Now I almost have to bring up the thing.
Is it like basically quantum entanglement or something like that?
Essentially, where it's the same particle that is in two different locations. It is a theory, like a theory. It's not even something that we can do, but it's a theory that's out there that if you have two identical molecules or atoms, essentially, that they're identical. They're not two of the same kind. They're two identical. They're the exact same thing in two different locations. The idea is that when one moves, the other one will move with it. So that would present the idea that you could theoretically get information from one side of the mirror to the other side, or one side of the gate to the other side. But again, this is like science fantasy.
Right. So there's also like, obviously there's a bit going on that is just, even in reality, at best, this is theory, and there's some stuff that you just kind of have to take in suspension of disbelief. But ultimately, the other thing that happens is you kind of, and this is where I was going to segue it into, is because there is a thanatological concept going on here, and this is a conversation. This is where I kind of was able to kind of come back into the conversation, somewhat slightly intelligible words, because basically what's happening, I'm going to try, Green, help me if I go off on a tangent, because I've been stuck in this particular theory for a day or so. basically what's happening is that you have a translation process going on here. You have an entity that is going from one mode of existence into another mode of existence, and they don't understand the basic building blocks or the geometry of the reality.
Right.
And I'm walking on thin ice because this actually does get explained in I just went blank. Cocytus. It does. Icdices, thank you. It kind of gets mentioned here, but the thing ultimately that keeps coming back to is that the 9, which are kind of really what I'm assuming is being talked about as being the entity on the other side of this gate. The 9 don't understand the concept of entropy or decay. And ultimately, if you think about the 9 as intellectual creatures, creatures of intellectual existence, they exist in Bife has said this, they exist in a psychomutable netherverse. They exist in a realm of existence in which, if they think, they exist.
It is binary.
It is a binary system. They either you don't, like in an intellectual model, you don't have entropy, you don't have decay. A thought either exists or it doesn't exist. It does. I mean, that's just the way thoughts work. You can't have a thought decaying. It just doesn't work that way. Your brain can decay and you can lose thoughts, but again, the actual concept of that ephemeral thought, it doesn't go through the process of decay like a material body does. So something as simple as age for us is, as inhabitants of the material plane, they don't have that as a existential component within their equations. So they're going from a one-to-one equation to a one-to-many equation, and that's where the translation error is coming in, or a lacuna coil is coming in. You see this actually in the book Dust, as explained by Zur when he calls back the mention of Ghost Fragment Ishtar Sink. This is where you see a dented copper red box, and it's filled with grains of sand, which, if upon closer examination, are basically models of every single world in the known universe, and possibly some others. What that actually was a message from the 9 saying, they were trying to explain what they were, or what they are, and I know I'm getting really out on thin ice here because I'm trying really hard not to spoil I can't remember the book.
Dust and Ecdysis.
Ecdysis. Gosh, man, the book is not in front of me, so I'm not thinking about the name of it. But Ecdysis kind of really goes into this and kind of connects the dots very, very well. But basically, it's all a basic translation error. And what I was telling Green is, this is actually something that I deal with on a daily basis because I do database querying. That's one of my big components of my job, is taking databases and combining them so that we can have usable data to present to, different levels of management. And we have, when you get to databases that are millions and millions of records, a translation error is a very big issue. And translation errors and syntax errors, they can be the most minute thing, can completely screw up any query that you're running. And that's just information displaying. I'm not talking about creating data. Creating databases, networking management, all this other stuff it's even more complex. But this just makes a lot of sense to me, because if you also combine the idea of the concept of what is explained in Ecdysis about the 9, and then add this piece on top of it, it actually does make quite a bit of sense. Because basically, again, the 9 exist in a cognitive realm. They exist in a state of intellectual existence. There is no material thing there. They don't have to compute into their equation of being the concept of entropy. We exist in the exact opposite. We exist in a material realm within the Destiny universe. We exist in a realm in which decay and entropy is a natural piece of our existence. We don't, we can't exist without decay.
We constantly move towards
we
entropy,
we
even
are,
though we also have the ability to regenerate.
which is why you refer to guardians as paracausal, is because the cause and effect is that, if you exist, you're, for the most part, you're mortal. Mortality is basically the trip of entropy. You are brought into existence, and then you eventually will die. That is mortality in a nutshell. Guardians and any of the creatures explained as paracausal in the Destiny universe are those creatures who don't follow that paradigm. They break that link of causality, and that is where that paracausal kind of definition kind of comes into play. That's a gross oversimplification of what paracausal is, but that is one of the big components, is that we are able to sidestep the entropy that is causing that is part of our existence in this universe. That also
Which is why the nine are interested in Guardians and Ahamkara.
And yes, that's exactly what I was just about to say. And that right there, zero in on why the Guardians are a pinnacle of interest to the nine, because we are outliers in this bell curve of a system. And if you can understand the outliers of the bell curve, if you can understand the edges and what sets us apart, then you can also get a better picture of what lies in the middle of the bell curve. And therefore, then you can communicate more clearly with that universe. So the entire Cocytus Gates is really, it's a manifold. It is something that arguably was constructed either in the Golden Age or, quickly following that. We don't really know.
It was listed as a Golden Age experiment.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, I guess the point is like the mentioning of the Golden Age experiment is they even acknowledge that they don't know what the purpose of. So we don't know if the Golden Age experiment, like, we don't know if it was to punch a hole in the multiverse or if it was to punch a hole in a different realm, whatever is going on there, or if it was something that, Crota took over to kind of, backdoor his way into a throne world. And then because Crota took it over, there's a lot of different ways that this could be explained into, but the end result is that it is now pretty much a gateway into what is kind of being presented as the realm of the nine. And you kind of see that with Dust, I believe, is the book that kind of explains that concept. And all these new books this season are all super connected, and it's just, when you get the full picture, I just really am really excited about Cocytus and Dust and all the pieces coming together, because from what I've seen of them, I'm really excited about it, if you can't tell.
The next one, Ringer. This one makes me giggle a little bit because it's the civilian conspiracy theorist.
Oh, yeah. This is also connected to Dust, actually.
Yes. So, this is a stolen intelligence from a agent designate CHA-319. It is essentially, we find out in the very first entry that they stole this information through the lens of a sniper rifle, essentially, from 500 meters away during a rainstorm, and they only got part of it.
Which is like, well, the audio wasn't really that great. Like, did you just...
Which is terrifying to know, like, what kind of, like, equipment they were using for some of this stuff. We find out later. I'm a little miffed about the stuff at Drifter's place. Just saying. Because I'm like, am I okay to, like, be in my own home with you guys around? Is this a thing? No, not at all. Anyway. This one is essentially the theories of a conspiracy theorist about the effects of the Red War, essentially. Like, why he's theorizing why the Reef didn't respond. He's theorizing why others had no warning, why Dead Orbit didn't give anybody any sort of response. He's a little miffed about Dead Orbit and Future War Cult in this.
Well, he also calls out our Guardian, too.
Yes. Like, the fact that...
And the funny thing is like, his conspiracy is...
fairly well sounded, and at least the theory behind the Reef is sounded, I think.
Well, the entire... Okay, is it spoiler to continue down what I'm trying to say? Because I can't remember if that was in dust or if that was, I don't know. The conspiracy theorist, ironically, is not necessarily 100% wrong. I'm just going to say that.
Right. I don't think that's spoiling.
And the other thing too is that, like I had mentioned at the top of the show, this is actually a card that kind of gives us that not hidden operatives are guardians, because the person writing the card specifically at the end specifically makes a reference that he wishes one of their own would die and be rezzed as a guardian. I think it's Hassan. Okay,
yeah, that's true.
So I was taking that as being like, oh, okay, so maybe this isn't. Yeah,
they had a leak.
The hidden have a leak, and he says that he's like, I don't know where it is, but I bet it's. I think it was Hassan. He's like, I hope he dies and gets rezzed or something. And I was like, that's a funny thing to wish on people.
I mean, he doesn't say he hopes he dies. He says he hopes he gets rezzed as one of us when he dies.
Yeah.
Because he thinks he's a good guy. It's not like I wish he dies and then gets rezzed and then he doesn't remember anything.
I took it as he thought that it was the guy that was doing the leak.
I mean, it may be.
Oh, okay.
Either that or Hassan is the name of the conspiracy theorist.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that's
what. Okay, I can see that.
Because I read it as Hassan Shimizu, which is the title at the top and the subject line. I read it as Hassan is the conspiracy theorist who has really good insight, and that this person is hoping he will be resurrected and become one of the hidden later.
Got it. Okay, but that I can see that. Yep.
But the other thing about this is that he's apparently too good. Because at the end, the agent is going to continue to recommend to the cryptarchs not to allow for his papers to be published along with legitimate publications.
Which is the connection to dust.
Yes.
Because that's what happens in, I believe it's The Bone, I think is the entry.
With, I
can't remember the cryptarch's name, or the cryptarch assistant's name.
Mm-hmm. The one who goes searching.
She's researching, and she comes across this guy's paper, actually this paper, and she tries to look into why it was redacted, and that's what sets off apparently a few little beep, beep, beep alarms.
Chain of events.
Yeah.
A lot of chain of events.
Oh yeah, a big chain of events actually.
Yeah. And then we go to Forgeries, which is the next one. This one was kind of good this one, thank freaking God, this card. Because this one has everything to do with Truth to Power, which we don't have all the cards out yet.
Yes.
But this one
brings back Truth to Power as a little bit of a relevant event.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that is also nice. But as this is also the card that mentions Our Guardian. But as you know, an unknown sender delivered 6 messages to VIP 2014. These missives were sent via Glimmer using simple encryption scheme that even a 5530 unit frame, which that makes me really sad that those are considered the dumb frames, apparently.
I just love that like statement though. Is like, okay, seriously, even these guys could have figured this out.
Makes me sad. Ghost took immediate notice of these messages and quietly forwarded them on to Ikora, who then distributed them back to us. And then
which also begs the question of, can you trust Ghost to keep things? You know, like there's a couple implications there too about Ghost and him quietly forwarding, because he also forwards. He apparently sent the message about our waking hallucination.
Yes.
Which I guess, okay, to be clear, the waking hallucination mention in this card? So there's a mention of a guardian having waking hallucinations. Do you think that was in regards to the event at the beginning of Destiny 2 that we experienced, or do you think it was the event that will be later explained by Fenchurch?
I don't think we have enough information to settle that.
Okay. Because that was the only debate in my head that I was trying to figure out, is like, is this in regards, you know, to us, because that would have implications of Ghost kind of being
the other thing
a tattletale.
we're also getting the hallucinations from the Nine now, too,
Right.
specifically.
Okay, that's true as well. Yeah.
So there's lots of different cinders in some ways, or they could all be theoretically the same one. I doubt it, but you never know.
Hmm.
But in this card in particular, we find out that from Truth to Power, if you've read the cards that you've gotten so far in Truth to Power, there are two identities of the possible cinder portrayed in the cards. One is Eris Morn. The other one is a craft mind by the name Medusa. This card basically negates both of those as possibilities, or at least calls into question at least the craft mind. Eris has, in this card, they have talked to Eris. Eris is not the one who sends you those cards for Truth to Power. The agent has talked to both Rasputin and Failsafe to see if they knew anything about a craft mind.
Really quick call out there. Can you explain that? Because I saw some people questioning that particular code.
Exodus Black code?
Yes. Yeah. The Warmind, the AI com codes.
Oh, really?
Well,
I thought that was really clear.
I'm not going to make a comment either way, but I do know that there was debate on if that was a no or not.
It doesn't say that it has to be a war mind. It just says it's an AI.
Yeah, it's an AI communication
Right.
for XBLK. So that I read
Exodus
that.
Black.
I read that as Exodus Black, which would be failsafe. And then RSPN.
Which are the two.
Yeah, which are
is
the two
Rasputin.
two major AI that we have in game right now. I just wanted to kind of call that out because I did actually see that kind of being mentioned some places. So that's where those identities are kind of brought into the fore, if you will.
Right. So they basically asked those two if they had any recollection or any knowledge of a craft mind or of another AI designated Medusa. They said they have no record of that. It doesn't discount the possibility that such a craft mind may have existed, but in light of the fact that someone was impersonating our former colleague, namely Eris, it follows that someone may have credibly invented a craft mind as well. So they're not. The thing that this proves is, this card at least proves, is the fact that Eris is not the person sending it to you. Mm-hmm. So the whole story about
it also does something else with Eris.
Yes, it does. It tells you where Eris came from. Because Eris is a child of the city, apparently.
A human child of the city, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yes. She was born within this last city. Let's see if I can find that line.
I want to say she was a human, right? Is this where we found out that she was?
Pretty sure. Let me see if I can find it. In these messages, the sender briefly purports to be none other than one Eris Morn, providing fanciful details regarding her origins as a human woman who grew up in an apparent settlement of old Russia, known as St. Petersburg. None of this account sat well with anyone who actually knows Eris, not simply because none of her close confederates had any first-hand knowledge or belief that she knew of her pre-Guardian origins, but also because she is still active in the field and has personally denied sending these messages. That being said...
So that aside...
That being said, in accordance with our rigor for skeptical inquiry, this agent was dispatched in pursuit of hard evidence to the contrary. I now submit to you photographic and video evidence recovered from civilian family albums, historical archives, and extant ghost recordings originally captured in the last city. Behold, Eris, a child of the last city, born to civilian parents in a mortal guardian integrated neighborhood.
Which is
Behold,
cool, too.
I like Tiny that. VIP, 1786.
This is the one that I don't understand who he is.
We have no idea who he is. Though he is almost more unbelievable than Eris, if you look at his smile. So I want to know...
Oh, you know what? I bet that might be Asher. That's what chat's saying. Because the smile piece, I can maybe see that. Okay.
I could see that. That would be funny, though.
I will be honest that that thought did cross my mind, but there's not enough to. Yeah,
there's nothing, there's nothing in here that really goes to say that Eris is human. In that it's just that she was born to civilian parents in a mortal guardian integrated neighborhood.
I also like that because it kind of gives you a glimpse into some of the like the daily life of the city.
Yes. But the card goes on to acknowledge the carbon dating of the video and the photographs compared to the ghost data, and it's all consistent. Let's see here. Yeah, there's nothing in here.
Consistency is key.
Yes. Tiny Asher. That would be hilarious if that was Asher. Asher and Eris being friends before becoming guardians.
BFFs.
That would be really cute. That would be adorable, especially considering Eris hanging out with Asher at the end of D1.
Say, and it would also explain maybe like where their odd little friendship does actually kind of stem from. If there's like this like not that they necessarily would remember, but like if they were, you know, it kind of like is a nod to, is friendship really a mental thing, or is that like is there something habitual way that we connect with? I think that would be a cool little nod there.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to let you take Passivity.
Okay.
Because this one has to do with Callus.
Oh, yes. This is the one that is from TRU 135. So the figure that we're not really sure who it is. I kind of want to say it's Trust, which is a guardian from Shax's fire team in Twilight Gap. And that's the only reason I say that is because he's the only guardian or the only light bearer that I've been able to find with the name that starts with TRU, which is, you know, super defensible. I think that's an amazing defense against any criticism against my judgment there. No, it's not. I have like literally, it's the only guardian that I have that has TRU in their name. But that being said, this does talk about two VIPs. 4044, who will be Val, is it Kaur, which I believe is the Spire of the Stars raid layer, I think. And then 3801, who is Callus. The big note here, the takeaway here is that we actually see what is pretty strongly, I think, a lead into the Season of Opulence. Which is, I find that kind of cool that they're already kind of paving the road for that, because the agent here is talking about how there has really been no activity on the Leviathan lately, and how, like, you know, that kind of is kind of nerve-wracking for this particular agent, because it's Callus, and he's been trying to convert Guardians to his side for a long time, and he doesn't trust him. And then he also calls out the fact, he uses as an example the fact that Callus, without question, was basically hiring out the Guardians to help him with the situation with the Val. And we kind of responded, and there was the whole situation of him wanting us to become the Shadow. And so, like, he's basically, I don't trust this guy.
Which, for good reason.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not arguing with his assessment at all.
Right.
Like, his assessment is spot on with the situation that is going on here. But I do
the propaganda campaign of Callus.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just Callus is a lot more crafty than most people believe him to be.
Well, and then there's also the fact that Callus is not Callus. Like,
well,
that whole little tidbit, you know, kind of causes problems. So yeah, and then basically the summary is that, you know, hey, no news. I'm suspicious. We need to send teams to explore this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really kind of, again, that's kind of where I see as you see also a connection to the Dust card, with the mention of the Awoken doing flybys of the Leviathan, which is something that happens in Dust again later in that particular book. The comment about why the Leviathan is not able to consume Nessus is actually presented here, which is an interesting theory. The agent reports that the theory is that the reason that it can't consume Nessus is due to the extensive Vex machinoforming, I think is the term that they use,
Yeah.
which is basically what they did with Mercury. They're doing with Nessus. They're turning the asteroid into a machine, so it's kind of hard to consume that for planetary resources. There's not really planetary resources there. And then there's the issue with inbound outbound traffic to Leviathan is like non-existent. Again, kind of a nod to the fact that there hasn't been anything going on the Leviathan. And so they're like, but how are things getting communicated?
Right.
How are things getting sent there? You know, we have agents being bribed with stuff. So they're kind of maybe closing in on Benedict, you know, because there's that whole issue still going on in the tower that hasn't been resolved. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And that might explain why the character for the Season of Opulence is basically Benedict with a sword. You know, I mean, there could be a possible nod to an explanation there as well.
Benedict is. I am interested to see what's going to happen with him. I'm glad they're going to make him, or at least it looks like they're going to use him as a character, an NPC that's more worthwhile.
Well, I think they're gonna. I think that Wow, I just blanked on that. I think that it would be worthwhile for them to use the asset that they already have there, not just from a mechanical standpoint, but also from a story standpoint. Like Benedict's already embedded in the tower. He's already, you know, it's already there. He's already inserted into the situation. So not to use him would waste. Just personally, I think. Or, you know, use him to further the story, at least in some capacity. Maybe not him being a major component in the story, but at least furthering the issue that we have with Callus, you know, again, actively recruiting Guardians to be shadows. I mean, that's a bit of an issue.
Fragment. This one hurts my head a little bit. Partially because it's Fenchurch.
Partially because it's that guy.
That guy.
The inside of the tower smells like vanilla.
You mean the Traveler?
Or the Traveler, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is from Agent Fenchurch 092. It takes place on Luna. He was essentially doing routine surveillance outside of the Hellmouth and basically got a migraine and had to go lay down. When he laid down, he passed out and had very vivid dreams of chasing Eris Morn, trying to catch up with her.
In a crowd.
He couldn't. In a crowd. He could not catch up with her. She was always out of reach, whether it was by 200 meters or 20 meters. He had the sense that he needed to speak to her. When he woke up, his headache had not improved, and then he left his bivouac to go outside, and there was a single stationary thrall crouched nearby. It stood up as he approached, but it didn't make any move to attack him. He fired one shot, killing it, and then upon getting closer to it, sees that there is a solid black fragment of an unknown material embedded in its chest cavity. The fragment resembled a flake or a shard of some larger object, not dissimilar to a high-gain photovoltaic panel, which is a solar panel. I had to look that up. I still can't say the word right, but essentially it's got a high sheen like a solar panel does. And then after the ghost analyzed it a little bit, there was nothing that they could see that would be worrisome necessarily. And so he decided, okay, Ghost transmat it so we can get it into quarantine. Ghost couldn't do it because there was no light link to it, which is I don't know if we've ever had mention of light link before, but that's an interesting thing. Have we ever had any mention of the term light link?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah, because that automatically screams the 9 since the 9. But because even things within Hive and whatnot, we can still transmat.
It's to kind of go back to Star Wars. I know Green loves it when I do that. The Star Wars example that comes to mind is the Yuzhan Vong being outside the Force because they exist outside of our solar system. They're not within the energy signature of this particular system, And so like the way and this is the expanded universe, so I guess it's Star Wars Legends at this point, but within that existence, the Force doesn't sense, they can't, like the Jedi can't sense this particular enemy because it exists outside of the living force of the system.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a different, it's basically a different spectrum.
Okay.
It's not that it doesn't exist within that life force. It's that it's a different spectrum that people aren't used to seeing. And so they have problems sensing them. I kind of read that as what's going on here is like, it's not that it's technically outside of the light or whatever. It's just maybe that it's a different spectrum of energy.
Can I also just say that number 6 freaked me out because my brain went to last week's conversation, and I thought about Weapons of Sorrow initially. That's not what's going on here at all. Because after Ghost tries to transmat it and that fails, because the fragment is described as slippery and tiring to try to catch hold of, Finchurch uses the barrel of his sniper rifle to touch and then work the fragment out of the thrall, and then kind of like turning it over and trying to look at it a little bit. Ghost then does another analysis, which is in report for analysis 2. They concluded that the material seems to be inert and did not seem to be part of any complex device or mechanism. And then Finchurch breaks protocol.
This is the best part. He's like, I can just see it being like, screw it.
Yep. So instead of requesting backup, he picked it up with his hand and immediately experienced a vivid hallucination. Because
this is why we don't break protocol with quarantine items.
Oh my gosh. So he was standing over 0704's shoulder as she dressed a 7-inch gash on Agent Eris Morn's thigh. Both 0704 and Eris were dressed for combat. Hundreds of fragments of the unknown material hung in the air around us, apparent shrapnel from the wreckage of a nearby ship of unrecognizable make and model. Eris looked directly towards me and then said, and it's in Russian, it's basically pathetic or pathétique. Or at least that's the translation that I was able to come up with, which we have seen this word in another card, by the way. I don't remember which card, but I remember having
it's Russian,
to look it up
so
again.
It's probably limited to a character.
I mean, it's always been related to Eris.
Well, that or Rasputin.
Wait a second. You finish this one out. I'm going to do a quick search.
Oh, okay. So he has the breaking of protocol and then running out of the quarantine issue. The the mention of pathetic is dropped here, and then the vision lasted approximately about 7 seconds. But and then following the vision, they kind of stood there because they basically were like, okay, this thing is actually contaminated, or this thing has contamination potential here. So they stood their ground for about 30 minutes, and then once they confirmed that nothing else was going to happen, they proceeded to bag and tag the shard, and then he filled in the report that we get here. This also has so there's a couple things that I made a note here. VIP 0704, we are not 100% sure on the identity of that individual. I'm not sure on who that is. And then also I've seen this a number of times mentioned outside, and I kind of like this. I don't know if this is actually the case or not, but it does possibly seem to be a nod to Destiny 1 veterans who are still playing Destiny 1, with the mention of, quote, guardians who have made their homes on the small contingent of veteran guardians who have made their homes. I know a lot of the comments about this card on the Reddit threads for Destiny lore, and then also some mentions on Twitter I've seen kind of are ascribing that to be kind of a nod to the players who are still playing Destiny 1 and are playing, because obviously the moon was a big component within Destiny 1, so that's where we kind of see that potential nod there. I'm trying to think. We have mention of Ikora, we have an of Eris and a Finchurch. That's all I got on that one. Green.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all I got.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Nope.
I know helped me out a little bit. The other card that word appears in is in Letters, which is in the Dreaming City book, which is the Eris Morn card in Dreaming City book. It's just interesting. Very interesting. Anyway, threads. There are threads everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Lease is the next book.
Which is an explanation of why Drifter has... This is an explanation of why Drifter is X.
From the perspective of Ikora.
Yes.
Keep that in mind. This
and
is
it's
important.
it's also a passive-aggressive note to Anor, which is amazing.
So after several months of negotiation, the Vanguard has agreed to allow Drifter to formally lease an unused warehouse space in the annex of the new tower. To be clear, this was the Vanguard's proposal, not his. That's important. Despite the many skeptics who have good questions about the social risk inherent in providing Drifter with a more legitimate space, we feel that any disruption or morale or tower culture will be short-term and minimal. Likewise, we feel that he does not present any present danger to the tower or city inhabitants. We continue to work alongside Lord Shax to assess the long-term strategic value of Drifter's Gambit. I recognize that this decision will be unpopular with certain agents who have not taken it upon themselves to invest. Yeah, basically, Ikora is like calling out Anor for basically
going rogue.
She's going rogue and investigating Drifter, even though it's not something that has been
assigned.
She's not been told to do this. She's doing it on her own. So she I
love that that little bit of, and then I think what you're about to read too is the other part that I like.
Yep. Please remember that I sidelined myself from active duty in order to personally surveil his activities in the tower, and that I kept guard outside his former place of business since his arrival. It is my belief that his presence will do more good than ill, and the tower has long stunted its own growth through narrow-minded fear and reactive exile of dissidents. We should endeavor to remain sharp skeptics of philosophies which differ from our own, but we should always be willing to hear and consider these philosophies. Further, any concerned members of the Praxic Order should recall that the Vanguard holds jurisdiction over their actions, and that the exile of dissident philosophers is very different from the exile of rogue operators.
Basically, don't make me do what I have to do.
It's like, Anor,
I'm sorry. I love it.
Like,
you may have the Cormorant Blade, but you're still an agent who answers to me.
Mm-hmm.
And we understand your concerns, and we hear them, but stop.
But shut up.
But stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also goes back to a little bit of the thing in Instability too, right? It's like the politics of because again, they're having the Vanguard is kind of in
having to babysit.
Well, they're having to babysit, and they're kind of being put in between a rock and a hard place, because they're having to take care of the city, and they're also having to try to keep the Guardians in line. And the Guardians are, for better or worse, Guardians are not really good at controlling impulses, if you will. And so, it's tough for them, because it's like, no, I mean, I just see it as like, Ikora's like, no, I understand why you're saying this, and I get it, I agree, but there's a bigger picture.
Yeah. The irony of this whole thing is the fact that Anor is the one who stole all this intelligence.
Oh yeah, that's the part that gets called out in Oxygen.
So
the other irony is that it's Ikora who is telling Anor to not be so rash.
Yes.
Because Ikora is not the most docile individual, if you will. But
here's the thing, and I actually got into this with Chad a little bit earlier, is like, Ikora has perspective. Anor does not. Exactly.
That's what I mean. It's like, there's a bigger picture going on here. And I appreciate where the logic is coming in from Ikora's standpoint, where, Anor is focused on, and it's not, and the thing is like, neither side is necessarily wrong.
Right.
Right. It's It's just they both have different perspectives of what is expected to be, what should be the priority here. And this is also where you see a breakdown in the maybe the military hierarchy communication without the speaker, without Cade to balance out, without a fully functional consensus. There is really going to be there's a really strong struggle in who answers to who, because there's also the point where, the Vanguard is having to do a bit of babysitting, but if the consensus or the Guardians don't agree necessarily with what's being babysat, they're like, well, you don't have the right to they have a legit leg to stand on to then turn around and say, like, you don't have the right to tell me to do that.
So here's something as far as a debate goes. Dino's bringing this up in chat. All of this could be avoided if Ikora would just tell Anor any of the reasons that Drifter needs to be around. The problem with doing that is that you're giving out possibly sensitive information that is not something that Anor needs. So it may be the decision of Ikora and the Vanguard in general to keep that information under wraps, possibly because it relates back to a particular gunslinger / shadow / whatever.
There's that, or an even simpler answer is that they might not necessarily know, and they're trying to prevent another situation like Osiris.
Right.
I mean, to be fair here, that's where the end comment from Ikora comes into play, is just because you don't agree with someone does not mean that you have the right to exile them.
Right.
And that's where, again, I kind of see a possibility that, it could be also that they don't necessarily know, but they also, it's the whole, we have seen a city that has time and time again, every time they disagree with someone, they exile, they censor, they exile, they censor. How many times have we seen this? And, it seems that for better or worse, Ikora doesn't agree with that. And, again, going back to does there have to be a legit conspiracy reason that she's doing this? No, it could just be that Ikora doesn't philosophically agree with the censorship or exile of, dissidents from a particular philosophy.
Free speech.
That's exactly it. That's also how I've been kind of reading it too. So, to put it simply, it doesn't mean that Ikora has, nefarious reason.
Also doesn't, and I don't think it doesn't necessarily a nefarious reason for Anor either.
Well, no, and that's the thing is, like, that's the thing with, that's what I was trying to say is, like, I don't think either side is necessarily in the wrong as far as, like, the reasons they choose to do what they do. Now, again, it's similar to my view of Zavala. I can see the logic of why I don't necessarily agree with the decision. But I see the logic of where the decision, like the path that led to the decision. I see that. But I'll be, yeah. Sorry. Get off the soapbox.
We're at the end.
Look at that. We did it.
Potential. We have potential left.
Oh yeah,
which
that's
is
true.
Anor's book or Anor's report, which let me find I've been jumping back and forth between Ishtar and my own notes. This is the entry where Anor has basically bugged Drifter's house.
This is okay. So real quick, this is also the entry that I mentioned when we were talking about the choice last week. This is the part where it kind of explains some of the paranoia that the city or the Praxics feel about Drifter, because the commentary that is included in this particular book, and I think it actually calls it out, like a textual analysis of the terms used. It just gives a little bit of flavor to why some of them are a little leery of what was being said in this conversation.
Well, it's a one-sided conversation for one.
What? Right. There's that problem too.
Because essentially what ends up happening is Anor hears Drifter doing his normal rambling, but at home, the rambling turns from just like rambling about random just lines that we hear in the tower to having full-blown conversations by himself where you only get one side. And this talks about their theory about the banks, which is interesting. This talks about the echoes of Oryx, or the quote-unquote echo of Oryx that we see in the Reckoning, which this whole thing is terrifying because apparently Drifter has the ability with the banks to create his own primevals now based off of the energy within the banks and his own will. So Drifter is a cheap version of Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern and creating his own primevals. So the Echo of Oryx that we fight in Reckoning Tier 2, and I think Tier 3 as well, is not actually an Echo of Oryx. It's not Oryx himself. It is literally just a construct that he came up with. Oh yeah, terrible movie, Black Flag. I totally agree. I went to the midnight release and I will never go to another one ever again thanks to that movie. Anyway, going back to this. There's a whole transcript of his conversation at the bottom of this, which it sounds like he's having a conversation with possibly the emissary.
Well, I mean, right. And I think that was the other thing that I was going to make a comment too, is like, it sounds like a one-sided conversation, but if it's just an audio feed, how do you know that it's not a conversation over a communication device? You know, like there's,
right.
I can see a few different, and again, I can, you know, there's ways to play this situation out in which these things make sense to be a little leery about.
The only thing that makes me think that it's either the emissary or the 9 in general is the fact, not only because it's listed as class NA, but also the user 1.02. You showed me a universe with no light, dominated by the dark. What are you arguing? Steadfastness in the traveler's dogma? Haha. That's not obtuse enough for y'all. And some of the different voice lines that Drifter has talks about his connection with the 9 and the Hall, which you kind of find out a little bit more about the Hall in this card too. But I don't know, just poor Drifter. You find out Drifter's having these hallucinations in last week's invitation to the 9. You find that out last week that he's also hallucinating, which that may be what this is as well. It may be an actual, or at least it looks like a hallucination to everyone else, but he's actually having a conversation. What else do you want to talk about in this card?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. I was just going to call out, the fact that, again, it was kind of a lead up to the Allegiance quest, possibly. Because also remember that this is all stuff that arguably was done or released before the Allegiance quest was supposed to drop. But that was my big here, is that I like how everything this season has really strongly tied into each other. Like I think that's been a really nice touch. Not that it wasn't the case before, but it's very much more, I think, a little bit more overt. I say that with the knowledge that at the same time, the connections cause headaches, but the connections at least are a little bit more.
We're getting some clarification.
Yeah, there's clarifications and answers to questions that have been long outstanding, really, and I think I really appreciate that more than anything. Even though in the clarifications that we get, more questions are asked, which welcome to life. But yeah, that was my one bit there.
We do get a description from Drifter of who he's talking to, but I can't say it on this podcast because he curses at it. But
I mean, you can say it. I'll just bleep it out.
Okay. He calls them you pencil-necked phantom geeks. So apparently they're real thin and tall. And maybe a little see-through. I don't know.
Oh, I love it. But I mean, yeah. And so I guess in closing, really green. Do you have any? What are your overall concluding thoughts? I guess.
It's a book about things to come, possibly. I want to know more about what's going on back on the moon because of this book. I haven't thought about the moon in a long time, and I haven't thought about the gates per se. I never really gave any weight to the story of the Sophia and the Dead Orbit crew because I'm not a Dead Orbit person, so I never really gave it much weight. But the whole bringing of it back up and tying it to the Hellmouth directly is something that has really fascinated me. And so that is something I'm looking forward to finding out more about. Obviously, this book is littered with stuff about the Nine. It's littered with hints about Callus and Eris and Truth to Power and everything that's going on. But I really want to know what's going on the moon and why the Hellmouth itself also is doing some of the same things that those gates are doing, at least giving off similar readings.
Right. And I think, I mean, to be fair, I think they do kind of give a little bit of a nod to an answer is like these used to be within Crota's manifold realm-esque. But I think the question that I have more and kind of agreed with you on that is like, and I understand that this is also getting into really theoretical at best, science, which we kind of talked about science fantasy and stuff like that. So I understand that there is going to be a limit to what can be explained, but I also am curious about like how all does this mesh together? Like because you have the Nine, you have the Hive, you have this manifold, you have the gate system, you have the Ascendant Realm, and it all is. It's obviously all connected in some form or fashion. But my question is, okay, but I want more information on that because that to me just is fascinating.
What if we find out this whole entire time now this is just utter craziness and not logical whatsoever, but the gate that, or not Oryx, Crota cut through where the Vex came through? What if that's related to some of the gates that we have now with the
Cocytus? I wouldn't be surprised. I think that given, but again, I think it goes back to how are they related? Because if they're, because there's so many different examples of gate networks, of branches, of bridges. You have just to name a couple. Not even in Destiny. I'm talking about like in mythology. You have the Celtic understanding, the Viking understanding. You have in more modern parlance, you have Stargate. You have Star Trek, Star Wars. All these science fiction or science fantasy books. You have plenty of works by Heinlein. There's just the breadth of examples for this particular concept are just endless. And so it's really hard to ascribe a set of logical rules to it because this seems to be its own unique thing, which is 100% fine. I'm completely fine with that. But I like how we're getting drip fed a little bit more logic with each kind of release on how this whole ecosystem, I guess, really, or this metaphysical, ecosystem, I guess is the best word for it, how it works together. Like, because that's really, for me personally, I love that part of stories. It's the world building aspect. You can get such cool detail doing that type of stuff. And I'm really digging the whole, like I said, I like the way that we're getting drip fed this information because it makes us part of the journey. And I think that's as much important as anything else within the game. I think exploring this, and I like how it's forcing us to theorize and to work the theories and, all this different stuff. I love it. I'm also frustrated by it because I just want the answer, and it's just one of those things.
But it wouldn't be as fun if you just got the answer.
I am complete. Well, anyways, I just flashed over to Halo. But like the thing is like, right, the journey is actually the fun part. Like that's where the uncovering and the learning and, you know, all that. I totally understand why we're being given it the way we're being given. But I also, you know, I also see the other side, the frustration of a lot of people with, you know, well, we're not being given it because it's like, I get that frustration.
Right. Beard.
Hmm.
What do you think? What do you think of the book?
Definitely a lot of different places that it effectively goes. I think it'll help when I'm able to sit down and read over things.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of revelations that I didn't go into because I just wanted to give a basic summary, but there are a lot of little tidbits like the whole machinoforming of Nessus being a possible reason why the Leviathan can't consume it, or there's just a bunch of different little tidbits that are really important as far as like the understanding of the grand scheme of things, but aren't necessarily important to us giving the rundown of what's going on in the cards.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
I'm gonna say it sounds like there's a lot of like little nitpicky things and a lot of rights, and what I kind of got from the couple entries I was able to kind of read over and over from this previously, it really felt like I guess a very good world building book.
Right.
That's the major kind of got. I know, Blue, you had mentioned about how everything is kind of interconnecting. I would still go back to a comment I made, I think it was last week, where it just feels like the entirety of the annual pass as a whole, or maybe Green, I think I had this, I forget. It just feels like the annual pass as a whole is very interconnected. And I feel like that was almost their purpose with it. Like the content is given to us in little bite-sized pieces over the course of several months. But largely, I think that it's done that way on purpose. I don't know.
Well, it's like, let's look at the connections that we have. We had the last word. Now, granted, Black Armory. The connections between Black Armory and currently the season of the Drifter. There's not a whole lot there necessarily. But with Drifter, we're getting all this information about the Nine. We're getting information about the shadows of Yor. We're getting information about Drifter himself. We're getting information about the status of the tower. A lot of that's tying together. And then this whole thing about the Nine on the moon and the hull and everybody connected that way and the new... It's a really convoluted storyboard, but I like it. But I don't envy the writers as far as like creating the storyboard on a wall or a whiteboard.
Oh my god, yeah, the continuity for this is, I mean, and the other thing is too, that's why I'm really, I would love, after this is all said and done, to see like a behind the scenes of how they managed all this. Because like I can see a couple different ways to do it. Like I can think of a couple different ways, and I'm sure there's plenty of other or much more knowledgeable in how this operation works. I'm sure there's other ways, but like I can see, you know, there's a couple different options that I could see that working, and I'm just curious like how even from a big level, a big picture level, like how you keep all the stuff straight. I mean, I find it challenging to keep stuff straight, but I don't know if that's necessarily because of
consumer versus creation.
Well, there's that, but I think it's also like how much of it is a imposed confusion, if that makes sense. Like how much of it is a misdirect given to us because it's a direct, like the intent is to misdirect it. Yeah, how much of it is actually intended to misdirect us as much or more than the story is confusing. You know, like I thought we were talking about the whole Dredge and Yor thing, and it's like when you know you look at everything, you cross the T's and dot the I's and all that, and you look at it, it's like looking at it from where we are today. The story of Dredge and the story of Shin and Dredge and you know, especially the Palamon situation and all that. It's a really basic story. Like it's not complex. But what made it so memorable and what made it so complex for people was the delivery system. It was how it was delivered, you know, the revelation of Rezel into Dredgen, and you know, how that was not revealed until the very, very end of the entire thing. I mean, I know I've said that before, but it's like, you know, the writing style for the artist or for the writers over at Bungie, regardless of John, Seth, Z, any of them, Joe, you know, all of them, they are all top notch in the way that they combined the beauty of the writing with the subtlety of the delivery. Like, and I think they're just, I mean, the full use of the medium that is the video game is just really, to me, part of the joy of what we do here. And so that's where I kind of like, I'm like, I think this is what's being said. And then it's like, oh no, it's not. You know, I don't know.
Well, it's like the truth to power with the Eris revelation.
Right.
In this book.
Right. The co-joining of information and the revelations are just, I just love it. Indeed. I also do not love the Thorn Strike.
You're still working on it?
We have gotten it down to an eighth of the boss's life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna just say F thralls right now because Jesus, like they're sneaky little buggers.
They are, especially when you don't have headphones on there.
I will admit I'm also running at a kind of severe disadvantage there because without radar and without sound, I'm doing a lot of paranoid spinning. I will be completely honest. That is happening quite a bit.
Oh goodness, that's funny.
There's a lot of, okay, I'm in a hallway and I'm pretty sure nothing's sneaking up behind me. Oh wait, something's behind me.
Mm-hmm. That spot is terrible.
Oh,
I know which spot you're talking about.
Yeah, this particular bot, there's not really a place for me to play my play style because it's just all like, hey, you're exposed.
In your face.
You're exposed. I'm like, I don't like it. I'm a hide in the corner and at a range type of player.
It's a fun encounter, though.
Oh yeah, no, I mean like the mechanics. I totally see. I saw. I think it was designers for this level. They made a comment about how it was meant to kind of I wish I'm actually as soon as we get done recording, I'm going to turn on headphones because I really want to hear the music for it. Because they said that the entire, not just the mechanics, but also the music was meant as a reprise of the original Thorn Quest.
Yes.
So, and for those who remember the original Thorn Quest, the pain and the PTSD of that particular mission, you'll understand why it's like.
I was telling him this at the beginning of the podcast that a Well of Radiance is great. You need a warlock.
We have a warlock. We got one.
You do? Is he running well?
He is running I don't know. There's a glowy thing that he throws down on the ground. I don't know warlocks. I don't.
Yes,
floof.
That's what he's running. The sword that goes into the ground with the circle with light, and you stand in it and make motes for you.
Oh, I don't think he's running that. I don't know. I haven't seen a sword in the ground. Granted, I've been dodging quite a bit, so I don't really know what's going on. I know that I can tether the ever-living bejesus out of all these ogres, and it makes harps.
So satisfying.
Yeah, it is. It's eat, friends, eat. But yes, anyways, so shout out to Pins, who is putting up with my mute nonsense right now in game. And yeah, now chat's reliving the pain of the original Thorn Quest. Oh, hiding in the Shrieker room. That's where Icebreaker really shone. But Green, what about you? What shoutouts do you have?
I don't think I have any shoutouts for this week, actually. I guess no, I really don't. I shout out to my Gambit team. Oh, no. Shout out to Nerd and Needle.
Oh yeah. Did you get the patches?
I have not got them in the mail yet, but I ordered them. I ordered a full set of Gambit patches for my Gambit team, which some of them know who's getting, like some of them know who they are and some of them don't know who they are yet. So I am going to be handing those
Some
out
of them don't know who they are.
As far as they don't know that they're getting the patch, I guess.
Oh, okay. I'm like, they don't know that they're in your Gambit team? Like,
I mean,
how does that work, Green? I want details on the sneaky Gambit collaboration here.
I mean, it's like you're my boyfriend, but you never knew that, right? Right? No, it's nothing like that. No, it's literally I have two options as far as for one of the patches, because my team fluctuates, and I don't know which one of them I'm giving it to yet. That's more of what it is. But my team is going to get
I had like
patches.
this mental image of like, hey, come play Crucible with us. Okay. God, she tricked us into Gambit.
Actually, we run Gambit more often than we do Crucible now.
Well, no, I mean, I can see that, but I'm like, I can see that being like legit being like, yeah, we're going to run Crucible, because you're not wrong necessarily.
Well, I mean, depends on which role you're playing, but yeah. Yep. But yeah, that's my shout out is to Nerd and Needle. Go check out her Etsy store. She's got not only the Gambit patches, which she's done, but also patches for the different factions and patches for Queensguard and all sorts of different Destiny related, as well as other fun patches that she makes. That's my shout out.
Awesome. Beard, what about you?
I don't honestly have a whole ton, I guess. Like I said earlier, thank you guys for the warm welcome back. It's been a tough last few months and whatnot, and this last week most fun for me at all either. Get back into the general swing of things.
How's your head?
I'm doing okay. I'm gonna feel a little bit on the painful side again. I did want to bring up that a article has kind of been making circulation that the New Yorker had put out from Emilia Clarke.
Yes.
You might know her from the Game of Thrones. She plays Blue. Help me, I don't know Thrones.
Daenerys. I find
you.
it hilarious that I'm the one that reminded this.
Yeah,
I don't watch this at all.
I mean, that's the one. I guess that's the one character that I know a lot of people know. She's the dragon lady. She has the platinum hair and everything with the robes and such.
She's gorgeous.
Yeah. Through recent events that I've kind of gone through with a friend and also a longtime listener here and on my show or my channel as well. Amelia had gone through a very rough patch in her life that she's finally kind of coming forward with fully, or at least exposing fully. But she had 2 aneurysms over the course of about a year and a half. And I think what it does to serve, even if it is just a matter of her sitting in her general vicinity as like a fairly popular person, or a fairly a person that's around in like celebrity and so on, just know that your health is pretty much the only thing that matters, and no matter what it is that you may be doing or what it is that may be going on, that if you don't have your health, then you have nothing. She allowed things to kind of go a little bit far, and unfortunately it was more a matter that she wasn't sure what was happening. But it's just as important to go get checked out if things start to be pretty commonplace or otherwise. Just to very mindful overall of like what it is that's going on with your body. Anyway, that's the general shout out I wanted to kind of leave. I think it's a worthwhile article to read. It's like a reminder to value those that are around you, because you do never know when they are going to poof.
Mm-hmm.
But also is just a general reminder to take care of yourselves, and if there's been something that's generally been bothering you pretty consistently, then at that point I would really say, I would definitely say that overall, get it looked at, make sure that you're okay, first and foremost. And I know I'm one to talk when I've got migraines that last for 5 days at a shot, but I already went down that road, so I got looked at. See? I followed my own words.
Yay.
Well, and at the end of the day, just remember, entropy is a part of our existence.
Yeah.
Is that the moral of this whole story?
That's the more okay. You're talking to a person who studied thanatology. Okay, so I'm gonna focus on the morbid aspects. That's just kind of part of my nature.
Blue is emo, confirmed.
Oh my god, I'm not talking to you for a week. So rude.
You love me. It's fine.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you guys next week, and I believe we're going to be talking about Ghost in there. Oh, I did mention that. I need to mention that. Basically, the reason why we're talking about Ghosts and their Guardians next week is because Strawpoll was dumb and decided to nuke the poll before I could look at the review. So I just had to kind of flip a coin, and I literally flipped a coin and just kind of RNG'd it to get that topic. So I apologize, because I'm pretty sure one of the new books was actually in the lead, and
there were 2 books that were tied.
Were there? Okay, yeah. I felt really bad, but I was like, I can't. I went to Strawpoll and I was just getting 504 errors all day. So I was like, oh, this is not good. So yeah. So we'll be doing Ghosts and Their Guardians, which will be kind of a nice little relaxed, probably more of a let's chat thing. And chat is thanking me for the existential nihilism. You are most welcome. Dead Orbit loves all of you. Anyways, see you guys next week. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/focusedfirechat. Links to all our episode archives can also be found at www.focusedfirechat.com. Please be sure to email us at focusedfirechat@gmail.com with any comments or questions for our team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. Also, be sure to check out all the amazing work being featured over on thelorenetwork.com. So until next time, focus your fire, and may your light shine bright.